Today I'm starting a new medication. Got me thinking about some terms and some ideas, things like ability and disability. What I'm starting to take and why I'm taking it I'll come back to, but first I want to kind of talk about the language. Disability, disabled, differently abled, enabled. As a teacher for over 20 years, as a newspaper reporter before that, and as a Canadian, I suppose, I'm very familiar with the idea of being politically correct. Terminology, language has changed over many years. There are terms that used to be clinical that are not appropriate for use anymore. At one time, people used the word retardation for certain mental conditions. Today, unless you're talking about a big truck with an engine retarder, you don't use that word. Another example would be handicapped. Again, it's fine in golf. We don't generally use it outside of that. Crippled. You might talk about a football player suffering a crippling or devastating injury, but you would certainly never use it as a noun anymore, at least if you're being politically correct, to describe a person as a cripple. It left me wondering exactly where do we draw the line when we talk about someone being able or disabled or differently abled. There are different levels and there are different ways. There's physical, there's psychological, there's emotional, there are all these kinds of factors. Most people would say, I would say off the bat, that if you're prevented from doing something because of a physical or mental condition, then that qualifies as a disability. But really, when you stop to think about that, is that true? I don't have the steadiest hands in the world. I would not make a good neurosurgeon. Does that mean I'm disabled? I've been wearing glasses since I was about 6 years old. Wouldn't make a good fighter pilot. Does that mean I'm disabled? I have an IQ of about 170. I have a physics background. I'm very good with math. I'm very good with numbers. I'm very good at a lot of things, much better than many other people. Does that mean they're disabled compared to me? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Really, where do we draw the line? At what point does your physical condition limiting you, where do we draw the line between perfectly normal for everyone and calling someone differently abled? I know many people, my best friend growing up, one of my best friends at university, various people I've worked with who have immense musical talent. I often think of one particular friend, another teacher that I've worked with many times. He's incredibly gifted musician. He composes music, he writes it, he performs it, and he teaches it brilliantly. He's terrible at math. I am far better at math than he is. Therefore, some students would say I'm smarter than he is. I disagree, because I can't do what he can do. Talking about myself for a moment, I have 3 basic conditions. I have Tourette's syndrome. You may not notice it too much in this video because I'm one of the lucky ones who can control it for a few minutes at a time. I have ankylosing spondylitis. If you're not familiar with that, I describe it as being kind of the evil twin of arthritis. It's an autoimmune disorder where your immune system basically attacks your body, your joints, your bones, in some cases even tissue. It starts usually late teens, early 20s in the sacroiliac joints of the lower back, works its way up your spine. In my case, it's gone into my neck, it's gone into my rib cage, my sternum. It limits my flexibility, it limits my motion. For some people, it can even affect the heart, the eyes. I'm really hoping mine never goes there. That's the condition I'm starting a new medication for today. For many years, I've been taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, and they help, but they only help so much, and they're very hard on your system. So starting today, I'm taking a new medication called Enbrel, and people tell me I might be pain-free for the first time in my adult life. I won't get all my flexibility back. I still won't be able to tip my head back to drink a can of pop, but I will maybe be pain-free. I don't even know how to feel about that. I can't imagine what it would be like. My third condition, the one that actually knocked me out of teaching, is post-concussion syndrome. About 1.5 years ago, I suffered a severe concussion, and I had for a while memory issues, cognitive issues, a lot of pain, a lot of headaches, a lot of photosensitivity, ringing in my ears, and it's never completely gone away. Now I can focus better. There has been some improvement, but if I tutor someone for an hour, I have to lie down for 2. If I go in and substitute teach for a day, I'm knocked out for 2 or 3 days. The headaches are still there, they're constant, and all of these conditions play off each other. The headaches and the concussion syndrome has affected me in that it has thrown off my balance and coordination a bit, which means I fall down a lot, which is really hard on the ankylosing spondylitis because every time I fall down, I'm at serious risk of injury. The head injury has also made my Tourette syndrome more difficult to control and probably worse, made me more symptomatic. That makes it really hard to be a high school teacher. I mean, I taught successfully for 22 years with Tourette syndrome. I had some very understanding students, but still, now it's worse and it's going to be harder to do. I don't know if I'll ever get back to a classroom full time. I'd like to, but honestly, I doubt it. I've applied for disability insurance. There's that word again. Or not disability insurance. I had disability insurance. That's run out. I've applied for disability pension. What's that mean? What's disability? I have a stepson, wonderful guy, 16 years old, named Victor. I mentioned him in previous blog posts. Victor has autism. Now, there is no questioning Victor's intelligence. He's a very bright young man. If I hear a song playing and I want to know who the artist is or what album it came from, I ask Victor. Victor, however, has a wall between himself and the world that's very hard to get communication through. And it makes things challenging for him. There's another word we used to use, challenged, mentally challenged, physically challenged, vertically challenged. Victor loves math. It's one of his favorite things in the world. But at the age of 16, he's still doing math at an early elementary level. He's very good at adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. But that wall, that barrier to communication, makes it very difficult to get concepts through to him that are complex or abstract. It'd be very difficult to try to explain algebra to Victor, trigonometry, geometry. He can count, he can add, he can subtract, he does it wonderfully, and he loves doing it. But more advanced concepts are very, very difficult for him. He can read beautifully, but how much of the information gets through that wall is difficult to assess. His teachers, he has a very good team at school. His teachers have done a great job working on comprehension with him, but still, only a certain amount of that information gets through. Am I disabled? Is Victor disabled? At what point do you draw that line? Victor will never be a high school teacher. He will never be an auto mechanic. He will never be a journeyman carpenter. He will never be a brain surgeon. He will probably never have a driver's license. I don't want to impose limits on him, but these are realities. Does that make him disabled? Maybe it does. But at the same time, he's happy, he's thoughtful, he's loving, he enjoys his life, he has people in his life who are wonderful to him. It's not a life sentence. It's just a description. It's just who he is. I think about many of these things a lot because I think, am I disabled? I could apply for and get one of those parking passes so I could park in the nice, close parking spaces. I've resisted doing it because I feel I don't need it and I don't want to take it away from someone else. Do I qualify? Yes. Do I consider myself disabled? Not so much. It's been a difficult reality to face that I've been unable to do certain things. So I really don't have any answers about this. I'm just putting out there the idea. What does it mean to be differently abled? What does it mean to be able? What does it mean to be disabled? I had an interesting experience last summer. I went to a washer toss tournament for charity, and I was partnered up randomly with a young man who was in a wheelchair and happens to be a world-class athlete. Now, the two of us came last, and there were two reasons for that. One, he had a hard time throwing a washer accurately from a wheelchair. Two, I suck. So we really didn't do that well. But it was an interesting day, and I could get up and walk around, and I took the end of the washer toss, I don't know what you call it, court, because that I did, because there was loose gravel there, and it was easier for me to walk there than for him to roll a wheelchair. So yes, he has limitations. But he drives a car, he's an intelligent young man, he's insightful, he's athletic, he's much more physically fit than I am, and he's a world-class athlete. Who am I to call him disabled? I'm not a world-class athlete. I have another friend, a former student of mine, who suffered a severe spinal injury, and he was largely paralyzed for a long time, and he's been working for several years to gain back strength, to gain back mobility. Victories for him involve walking the length of a room. He's an inspiration. Is he disabled? Well, he's never going to be a world-class athlete, at least unless you can, maybe in Special Olympics. He's probably not going to be a lumberjack at any point in his life. So yes, he has limitations. But at the same time, he's a brilliant, talented young man. So I guess the point of this video is I want to think about, and I want to make you think about, what does it mean to be able? What does it mean to be an able-bodied person? What does it mean to be disabled? Let me know. I haven't had a lot of feedback on this blog yet. I've only done a couple of entries. Post something in the comments section. Send me a message. Tell me what you think. Are we able? Are we disabled? Is it all one big spectrum and we're all somewhere lost on it?